Hey, CI crew! Welcome to another episode of Immediate Immersion Live, where input is king, stories are weird in the best kind of way, and engagement is never optional. Tonight, we're tackling the secret sauce behind every engaging CI class, storytelling that doesn't fall flat. You'll learn how to build a solid story foundation, get students to take the lead without panicking, and boost language output in ways that are actually fun for you and them. We're going to cover how to guide a whole class story without losing control, get students creating in pairs without it turning into off-topic chaos, and how to toss in twists and challenges that keep everyone on their toes, and using Spanish, French, German, Mandarin while they're at it. So if your last class story fizzled out faster than a middle school group project, get ready. This one's for you. We'll be right back after this quick intro. And we're back. How is everybody doing today? So we want to start with building a strong story foundation. That's the key to getting them engaged and making the story successful. Start with shared story creation. It never works well when the story is all yours. You want to go ahead and you want to co-collaborate a story with your students, and you guide them through this process of co-creating a simple class story using scaffolding techniques. So I always have my 5-sentence frame that I like to use. There is a character. Oh no, there's a problem. Then they try to solve the problem and fail, and then they solve the problem. So I kind of mixed that up a little bit. Here it is. It's character, problem, failure, success. So it's 4 key terms, but I stretch this into 5 key sentences because I add the oh no, there's a problem. So state the character. Oh no, there's a problem. State the problem. Have the character try to solve the problem and fail. That's the failure part. And you can do this part as many times as you need to stretch a story out. That's how you watch movies and TV shows and novels do that, to make it as long as they need to. And then finally, the resolution, the solution to the problem. So I come in with that framework in mind so that I use that framework: character, problem, failure, success. That's my framework. I use that framework and I guide my students through that. So I like to do my stories always in 2 parts. So the first part that I like to do is the character. So I'm going to spend my first whole day just on the character itself. So we're going to talk about that character. We're going to build that character. But it's not my character. The kids come up with the character to do that. And so that's what I'm aiming for. I'm just asking the leading questions to build that character. We're going through description. What is it? Then the description. Is it big? Is it small? What color is it? We're asking what's its name? What's its age? What is it like to do? What's its family like? We're developing this character into a living, breathing thing so that we can have something to work with and make it more engaging of a story. And when the kids create this character, it becomes a really powerful thing because they want to see what happens to it. Okay, you can use visual prompts. So provide images, short videos, or simple sketches to spark student imagination and give structure. So Lots of times I don't have to do a lot with this because my kids always have pretty good imaginations. But if something is like going flat. Like sometimes in middle school, this didn't happen very often, but when teaching in high school, some days the kids just aren't into it. They have other things going on in their brains. So what do I do is I'll give them some visual prompts. I might say, let's work on doing a thing as a character. So an inanimate object. So it sparks their creativity a little bit more. It's a lot easier to make an animal or a person a character, but it's a little bit more difficult. And then we'll look at some of these things up. So I'll go, some random objects and I'll look on Google Images and have them come up with some to give my kids some kind of ideas, and we can work from there. Especially with your lower levels, you want to incorporate sentence frames. So give students sentence starters or question prompts to help them construct narratives with ease. So you're teaching them the transitional words that go in there, the starting with, there is a his and then you can start working there. What I like to do here, and what I highly suggest, is that you create these patterns in your head as you go along where you're constantly scaffolding it. Because what we tend to do is always use the what do you call it? The short, choppy sentences. There is an animal. The animal is big. And when you do all of that kind of stuff, it doesn't always work the way that you want it. Then you're going to take those sentences and then build medium sentences by linking them together. Because if you only speak with short, choppy sentences, your kids have nowhere to grow. So you want to take those short, choppy sentences, you want to go ahead and increase them into compound sentences, and then make some complex sentences as well. So you're constantly scaffolding the language so they have some place to grow. Then you can give students those question prompts to help them construct the narratives with ease. So we ask those leading questions to get them to think about it. So, after that first day and we've developed that character, then I'm going to ask class on the next day, what's the character's problem? And I'm going to walk them through each of my steps of my frame. So the problem, we're going to talk about the problem. I'm going to ask them leading questions about that. Then we're going to talk about the failure. We're going to talk about what does he do to try to fix this situation, and it doesn't work. And then we're going to talk about the success part. So I'm scaffolding them through it. I'm walking them through it by asking those leading questions. And then I want to also empower the students to take the lead. So one method you can do is called the story relay method, where you have students take turns adding to a class story in small chunks, ensuring engagement and variety. This is something that I did just last week. We started with a topic sentence. Actually, what I did, and it was kind of a fun activity, to get my kids started, I asked for 5 story starters from ChatGPT to give me 5 story starters. Then I gave my kids the choice, which of these 5 do you want to do? And ChatGPT gave me like the first sentence of the story, just enough to get it started. And I put that up on the screen in a Google Doc. And then I called on kids randomly to add sentences to build it from there. And it was a really fun way to do a story that way. Another is to pair and share the mini stories. So here in Partners, you want students to create and refine micro stories before sharing with the class for confidence building. So what you can do here is have students in small groups or with partners come up with their own little mini stories that they want to use, and then they can share them to the class, but they've already constructed and refined them first in their groups or in their partnerships so that they have some confidence. They're not just going off the fly. You can also give choice in storytelling. So let students tell stories orally or through comics or short written narratives to accommodate different strengths. That works out really, really well because some kids like to talk and want to do it orally and get it done that way. Some are really good at art and they like to make comic strips, and so they want to build it that way. Or some like to just write short written narratives, just do a short story text wise. It doesn't matter as long as they're building story using their brains and using the target language. All of these activities are great ways to get kids to engage with the stories, with what you're doing in class, and to get them to think about the stories. And when we talk about stories, lots of times we're talking about oral stories in the classroom, but it doesn't always have to be that way. They can be written stories, they can be graphical stories. I liked when kids do comic strips. I'll have them do it, I'll have them do in frames, and then I will scan their pictures and then put one frame per slide in a slide deck, and we can tell the story together from what my students came up with. And we can expand upon it because they've given some text to go along with it, but we can always expand upon it and make it bigger. It's a really great way to do it. There's lots of things, lots of different ideas that you can do. Even with oral stories, we can have kids add those lines just like I did with the written story. Lots of different ways to be able to do it. And as always, if you have any questions or comments, please go ahead and put them in the chat or the comments. That way I can answer them for you. I can help you out. Also, I always forget, so let me go ahead and do that right now. Please like, share, comment, subscribe to us so that we can get our videos out to more teachers and help them prepare for class and be prepared in CI much better. So next up is output. We want to boost that language output and level of engagement. And one strategy to do this is the role swap. So have students retell a known story from a new character's perspective. And you can do this with stories that you've created in your classroom or co-collaborated with your students, or you could also, oh, excuse me, sorry, past my bedtime. Or you can also do it with really well-known stories that kids already know, like the Three Little Pigs, the Little Red Riding Hood, those kinds of stories. And have them tell the story from a lesser character's viewpoint. So they have to think it through. They already know the story, but they're going to have to make all the appropriate changes to be able to explain it from a different viewpoint. You can also add a twist with random prompts. So use dice rolls or spinning wheels to add unexpected elements that make storytelling more dynamic. So that's another fun little way that you can get things done because it's random. And so you can do different things with that. Add a twist, like maybe you use a spin wheel up there and you assign a different wheel, a different topic to each wheel, like add a new character here, make the character go to a different location, give the character a new problem, different things that can change up the story in different ways so that we can work with that and it takes the story into a new way. create a side story or make a side character. All these different things you can add to the wheel. You spin it live on there, and then we roll with it, whatever it comes to. You can also do this with dice. It's less visual unless you can find, I don't know, an online dice maybe you can find, but then you would sign like if a 1 is rolled, this is what happens. If roll 2 is what happens. You can also make like a choose your own adventure type thing with this as well. That you give 2 options. Does he do this or does he do this? And you can do the dice roll. That's where I would use a dice roll, and I would say if it's an odd, this happens, and if it's an even, this happens. Those types of things can happen in there too. You can do a spin wheel where you have multiple different options can happen, and whatever one lands on, that's what's going to happen. These are ways you can add twists in there to make it more engaging, more fun, and get our kids to think about it even more. Gamifying. So gamify with story challenges. So challenge students to include specific vocabulary, structures, or cultural references in their stories. Now, I have my serious vocabulary, the vocabulary that we're working on. I'll put that along the lines over there, and I want them to work on that. And I'll have like maybe 3 or 4 words up there. But I'm also going to put like 2 or 3 really off the wall, weird, funny words that have nothing to do with what we're talking about, and have kids challenged to try to fit it in logically. That is always fun. Structures. If we're working on something in level 3, like a conditional or a subjunctive, I want them to get that in there somehow. And you can scaffold this. You can make it open-ended for your top kids, come up with a subjunctive sentence and insert it in there. But for scaffolding it for your mid students, and even using subjunctive in a level 1, you can write out the sentence that you want them to insert in there and get in there. And then obviously cultural references to make our stories a little bit more culturally appropriate and bring that culture in that we can discuss is another great way to do it. So it was a short one tonight. I hope you got some good information how to build storytellers with your students. And I want you to go forth and create stories so compelling your students forget that they're in school or that they're learning a language, or at least they forget to ask, is this for a grade? Or how many points is this? Thanks for hanging out with us today. Same time, same CI channel next week. I'll see you then. Until then, stay comprehensible, stay weird, and we'll see you next time on A Media Immersion Live. Have a good one, everybody.